today's focus is on those wonderful check-ins. I think it is globally almost accepted that you have to have one-on-ones with your direct reports at least once or twice a month, although some people still only do it quarterly, simply because they miss the opportunity that is embodied in those one-on-ones. So let's just go through the normal journey of a one-on-one. I'm going to dramatize this. It's Tuesday afternoon and Sarah sits down for her weekly one-on-one with her manager, dear old Pete. She got her laptop, list of updates, and honestly, very little energy for what's about to happen. And Pete starts with, "So Sarah, how's the Q1 project tracking? Any roadblocks I should know about?" "Great. And that client escalation from last week, I'll handle that. Anything else?" "No." "Perfect. I'll see you next Tuesday." Now, at a stretch, this could have taken 15 minutes, but it was probably 5. It had zero impact. Pete leaves. I've done my one-on-one. Sarah leaves exactly the way she came in, except that now she's lost 5 to 15 minutes of her life that she will never get back. And here's what breaks my heart about that story. It happens thousands of times a day in thousands of businesses, in thousands of business meetings. Right now, in so many organizations, just like yours, leaders and their people are sitting across from each other, going through the motions of connecting without actually connecting. They're doing status updates disguised as conversations. And it's just another checkbox. But this one is disguised as development. And here's the part that should concern everybody. We know it's broken. 70% of employees say their one-on-ones feel like checkbox meetings. 70% of managers say they'll talk more than their people do in these conversations. And yet we keep on doing it the same way, week after week, month after month, hoping that something will change. So I'd love to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how meaningful would your direct reports say are your one-on-ones? 10 is riveting. 1 is, we don't have to do this again. Anybody?
So here at Western, we're just doing some new ones, and we feel, looking at each other, it's about a 7 for us. Still room for improvement. It's more
okay.
So.
All right.
You don't have to say 7 because I'm sitting here either. I can take it if you
well, both Dylan and I separately thought 7. So yeah.
Okay, Glenn, you're doing well then. Antoine, welcome. It's good to see you, and you a solid 5. Susie, you were 3. So hopefully by the end of this hour, we're going to have tools to move it to a 7. So I'm going to show you how to turn these routine check-ins into breakthrough conversations that people actually value. It. You will walk away with a simple structure that we call, once again, surprise, coach approach for one-on-ones that creates meaning and mattering and momentum in every single conversation. It also fosters accountability, which is whenever I get a new coaching client or a team coaching opportunity, it's like, hey, people are just not accountable. There's no accountability here, and I don't know how to make it happen. So we're going to learn 3 specific ways to bring this to life with your very next meeting. And here is what you will notice after coaching so many leaders through this shift. When your one-on-ones are right, everything else gets easier. Engagement goes up, Development accelerates, trust deepens, and those tough conversations you've been avoiding, they get less tough. So let's jump right in. And Pete is back with us today, like always. He ran a team of 12 in manufacturing, the oil and gas area. His team was very smart people doing complex, sometimes dangerous work. And he was a firm believer in those one-on-ones. He had them on the calendar, he showed up. But 6 months into this role, he had very high turnover. Safety incidents kept creeping up. And the team stopped bringing problems to him. So when we sat down together, I asked him to run me through a typical one-on-one conversation. And here's what he described. He'd start by asking for updates on current projects. The checkbox update thing. His team members would report status, usually green lights across the board. Everything is just going fine, Pete, we're doing well. Pete would share information about upcoming changes. He's asked if there are any problems, roadblocks. They would say no. And he'd dispense a little bit of wisdom upon them based on his 20 years of experience. And the team member would nod and they'd say, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Sound familiar? Now, Pete really cared about these people. He wasn't checking boxes out of apathy. He was checking boxes because he didn't know there was another way. And his team was paying the price. So what was actually happening beneath the surface of those meetings is that the team members learned that bringing up real challenges meant that they're going to get told what to do rather than being helped to think through it. They learned that the meeting was really about Pete and Pete's agenda, not theirs. And they learned to keep things surface level because depth wasn't welcome, even though Pete would have told you that's what he wanted. So they stopped bringing questions, they stopped mentioning safety concerns, they stopped bringing problems, trying to solve it in the background. And after that, they actually stopped staying in the business. They left because they had no value in the business. They felt, that disconnect between my job has meaning, my input has meaning. What I do here matters, and that's why they pay me the big bucks. Now, the story of Pete is not to shame anyone in this room or anywhere, because that is what happens in most one-on-ones. We've seen it so many times. There is a core problem with this approach. We think of them as status updates, reporting mechanisms, which is so dry and so boring. Time to download information and move on. But our people experience them as signals about whether they're actually being cared about, somebody cares about their growth, whether we trust their thinking, trust their input, trust them to do their jobs, and whether there is enough relationship within this team to belong somewhere. Is this relationship going to help them become more capable? Is this relationship going to help them to grow? So let's look at a different way. It takes around about the same time. A lot of people say, no, I don't want to coach because it's going to take so much time. It's going to take so much of my time. But the outcomes are radically different. It still takes 5, 7, 10, 15 minutes, and sometimes even less. Now, the objection that I always get without fail is, but Marderé, I need updates. My organization requires this reporting and I can't skip that part. Yeah? Does it have to be a conversation? Can updates just be an email? Can updates be done in a stand up and talk for 15 minutes before we start work that day? Can updates be done on a walk and talk? Can updates be done differently? Because a one-on-one is a private meeting, it lends itself to so much more. So here we introduce the coach approach. It is a different conversational framework, and some of you have been in a similar talk previously, so you understand the principles. But here is what it brings. Bringing a coach approach to every single conversation in the organization, specifically with one-on-ones, increases employee well-being by at least 70%. Now, the rollout of that is one HR person in this room. When employee well-being increase, guess what decreases? Absenteeism, disengagement, dialing it in. When well-being increases, engagement increases, productivity increases, and that lands directly on the bottom line. It also leads to lower turnover because people know that they actually contribute something, and there is a relationship here. We are made and built for connectivity. We are social animals. And then 18% increase in productivity. And these stats, if you want to see the sources, they're from Gallup and from PwC. Oh no, sorry, it was Deloitte's. Gallup and Deloitte stats. And I'll send them to you if you're curious. So what we're going to cover today comes out of the full program, Coach Approach for Leadership. And yes, this is a shameless plug for people to enroll in the Coach Approach for Leaders program, because we know it makes big changes in people's lives. It makes leadership so much easier. So the one-on-one conversation, the improved model for one-on-ones, lands slightly on improving performance and partially on goal alignment and accountability. And the model that I'm going to show you helps with both those aspects. So here's version 1. We've just listened to Pete do it. What's happening? What's the status of that project? I'll handle the client issue. See you next week. Sarah leaves, like 15 minutes of blah, 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 blah. And I really don't have to do this again. But here's what it sounds like if it was different. The leader starts. Sarah, before we dive into work stuff, what's one win from last week you'd like me to celebrate with you? So what just happened? Instead of jumping straight into status, the leader created space for recognition. It's a moment of connection, not generic recognition. Oh, good job, Sarah, you're doing well. But we're looking for a specific celebration coming from Sarah. So she's invited into the conversation and she's being recognized. Sarah lights up a bit. Actually, I finally got that proposal drafted for the new client pitch, and it took me 3 tries. But I'm so proud of where it landed. It looks good. Pete, that's fantastic. 3 tries means you really pushed yourself. What made the difference between version 2 and version 3? 2 minutes in and Sarah already more engaged into the conversation because she's part of it. Somebody's interested in her process. And then the conversation shifts to Sarah. What is top of mind for you today? Are we looking at work priorities, development goals, or something that you're stuck on? So this is the O part. She owns the conversation. The leader just handed Sarah the agenda and made it very clear that this is her time and she has to direct it. Sarah pauses. Honestly, I want to talk about leading the next client pitch. I know I'm ready, but I'm not sure you see me that way. Everything just changed. In a status meeting that never would have surfaced, in a meaningful one-to-one, it's exactly what should surface. The real growth edge, the real question, the real opportunity for development. So the leader leans in again. Tell me more. Tell me more about what makes you feel ready. And they spend 10 minutes exploring Sarah's readiness, the skills she built, the gaps she's aware of, and the support she will need. The leader asks more than tells. Sarah's talking, Sarah's thinking out loud, and the leader is responding and actively listening to what's happening in that room. Then asks, what do you want to figure out or move forward that needs my perspective or support? Not what do you need me to fix, not what problems do you have, but what do you want to work on together? What do you want to advance together? Sarah gets specific. I need to know whether you trust me with a March pitch, and if not, what would need to change between then and now? It's very direct, very honest, and obviously it is a safe conversation because Sarah can push her boss for the advancement and the change that she wants. This continues to build on capability and trust. Pete responds, I appreciate you asking directly. Here's what I'm thinking. And they're having a real conversation about readiness, timelines, and what success looks like. We're building capacity. We're building engagement. Finally, the leader asks, what is the number one commitment coming out of today, and how will you know it's on track? Not vague, let's touch base, but concrete commitment that creates accountability, that one thing that we lack so often. And Sarah commits. I'll draft a pitch outline by Friday and walk you through my thinking. You know it's on track when you see it in your inbox. 3 clear options for the opening. Same 15 minutes. Sarah left that meeting with clarity in her development path, confidence that her manager sees her potential, and a concrete next step. Difference between a checkbox meeting and a breakthrough conversation. So what really changed here? The coach approach is not about being nice. It's not about being polite. It's about making people feel good in the moment. It's about building the kind of capability and ownership that actually drives results. And when Sarah owns that pitch, owns the development, she's not just working on a skill, but she's building her identity as a leader who takes initiative because it was appreciated. When the manager asks questions instead of giving answers, Sarah's problem-solving muscles are getting stronger. When they co-create the path forward, trust deepens in both directions. What are the number one things that we often find with teams? Lack of communication, which just means we are not connecting with messages because people talk a lot, but messages don't land. They talk past each other. Ownership and accountability. And underneath that, people want meaning and mattering in their jobs. They want to have meaningful conversations. Here's what Pete discovered when he started making the shift. The same team members who used to give him green lights all across the board started bringing him real challenges because they learned that real challenges got real thinking time, not directives, not orders. Safety incidents dropped because they could talk about it. And people started mentioning concerns in one-on-ones before they became incidents. Turnover stabilized because people felt genuinely developed, not just managed. So the coaching structure gave Pete a way to lead conversations that build capability instead of dependency. And it will do the same for you. So here are the 3 things in this conversation. Start with connection, not status. Ask a real curious question, like you're speaking to somebody that you care about. What do you want to celebrate? What's giving you energy right now at work or outside of it? What's been harder than it needed to be? This is not small talk. How's the weather? Blah, blah, blah. You know, those types of questions. It's not about how was your weekend. Did you watch the Super Bowl? No. It is a strong opening for a conversation about that employee. Not about the manager, about the employee. And it pivots into work seamlessly. 2, instead of saying, let me tell you what we're going to cover today, give them the agenda. The shift feels most uncomfortable for leaders, but it creates the most growth for both the leader and the team member. Instead of coming to a one-on-one with your shopping list of topics and questions and updates, you're handing somebody else the structure and let them decide that is what matters most. It increases trust, and you probably get to know that person and what's really happening in the front line way quicker and way better than the other way around. If a question sounds like, what's top of mind for you today? Or we've got 30 minutes. What would make this time very valuable for you? Or what do you want to figure out or move forward that needs my thinking? And I'll send you all these questions so you don't have to worry about it. You can just rip them off the paper and start using them. Don't rescue people. Hold space. I'm genuinely curious about what feels most important to you right now. Take a minute to think about it. And once you've done it a few times, you'll be surprised. It's like the coaching clients that we work with. They come to the room with a thing every single time. Sometimes I'm not 100% sure, and before you know it, it pops up. It happens. Sometimes people may talk about things that sound trivial to you, or they will want to process something you think they should already know how to handle, or they bring up interpersonal stuff rather than talking strategy. And it's interpersonal stuff happens. It's work, it's people. Wherever there are people, there are interpersonal things. And if that is what needs to happen in the one-on-one, let them. It's important to them. Because here is what you're building. You're building their capacity to identify what matters, to advocate for their own development, to trust this relationship exists for their growth, not just your convenience. And sometimes they'll even surprise you. They'll bring up the exact thing that you needed to know, but wouldn't have thought about to ask about. They'll connect dots that you have not connected. They'll show you where they're ready to stretch before you would have offered the opportunity. So I coached a director a while ago who was convinced that his team leads didn't care about strategy. He felt a little bit lonely in the strategy and the forward-thinking space. He said, I need these people not to only talk about tactics. I need them to think about the big picture, to think about systemic thinking, to think about how the dominoes fall and how this bounces up to the big picture. And I asked him, did you ever give them space in a one-on-one to bring strategy question? And there was silence. And then he tried it. First question, what's most important for you to talk about strategically? And one team lead immediately said, I don't think our current approach to client onboarding is scalable. I have ideas, but I don't think you want to hear them. They spent 25 minutes working on those ideas, and 2 months later, they piloted a new onboarding system. He made space to hear from people. Many years ago in business school, one of the professors kept on telling us, it's like, you're not only employing a pair of hands. With every pair of hands comes a brain. Use that brain. You are paying for it. And this formula for one-on-ones allows us to do that. The third thing, advice. Replace advice with questions. If you've worked with me previously, I have talked about the advice monster. Michael Bungay-Stanier coined the term, and it is so true. We all have that advice monster, and it trips everybody up when it comes to moving over to a coach approach. Because when you ask somebody a question, your advice monster starts jumping up and down. It's like, why do you ask them? You can just tell them. It will be so much quicker. You can just give them the advice. But our advice is not half as good as what we think it is, because that is our answer to a question and a situation that we understand through our lenses. Sticking to questions allows the other person to inform us how they see it through their lenses. And yes, everybody has a different lens. Everybody has a different communication style. Everybody has their own unique way of seeing and processing information. And that's what makes people so interesting. The diversity of perspectives is enriching, not diminishing. So here is what becomes possible with one-on-ones. Imagine all your one-on-ones is where your people come prepared with what matters most to them, and they're doing the hard thinking, and you're adding perspective at the exact moment when it's most useful. One-on-ones where development happen in real time. We're not saving this for an offsite or pulling in a consultant to come and teach people or the annual review. It happens every week, every second week, every month. Whenever you have a one-on-one, there's development happening. Imagine a team where people bring you problems before they become catastrophes, because they trust that raising them won't mean getting a lecture, which is so painful. Where they take initiative without permission because they've learned their judgment is sound, where they advocate for their own growth because they know you genuinely invested in it. Imagine all the time you will get back when you're not solving the same problems over and over, because you've built your team's capability to solve it. The energy you get back when one-on-ones feel generative instead of draining. The trust that deepens when your people experience you as genuinely curious about thinking, about their thinking, and not just there to correct it. So in your next one-on-one, I challenge you to choose a question, hand over the agenda, and at least wait 2 more minutes before you start giving advice. So I'm going to pause here for questions. The coach approach for the one-on-one formula is we're starting with connection. A connection question, not small talk, not the weather, not the Super Bowl, none of that. And then we go straight into ownership, what's top of mind for you, and let that employee bring something to it. They will be the first few times, they will probably look at you in amazement and say, what? They actually care about talking about something that, anyway, if you keep it up, it will happen and it will become a habit and they'll appreciate it. And then you can bring in the concept of advance. If it is appropriate, what do you want to move forward? What are we talking about to get momentum here? What's your number one commitment for this week or for the next 2 weeks, whatever your cadence is? This is the handoff to ownership and accountability. What is your commitment and how will you know it's on track? And how will I know it's on track? How are we going to share information about this? So, shameless pitch for coach approach. These elements are part of the full Coach Approach for Leaders program. The Coach Approach is starting on the 18th of March. It's a 6-month program, and you learn and practice how to coach so that by the end of the program, it comes naturally. It will be easier to do it. You won't think twice. Regular price is $4,250, early bird is $850, but because you're here and you sign up in the next 24 hours, you get it for $3,500. And here is the simple rule about using a coach approach. You ask more questions. And by asking questions, you're building capacity. The standard rule of thought about coaching is that you're telling people how to do it. That is not leadership coaching. That is not how you coach people at work. That is how you train people. And there's a limit to that because it gets tiring on both ends. Very tiring to listen to somebody keeping on telling you how to do stuff and how to do it better. And it's very tiring to do that all the time because it feels like hard work. And it is, and it shouldn't be. Asking questions means that you're treating people as knowledgeable adults. You're treating people as people who have value. You're treating them as people who matter in your team. So coaching conversations are appropriate for development and career conversations. It is excellent for conflict and strained relationships. Brilliant for safety and compliance and change and alignment, planning, goal setting, every single aspect. There's only 2 instances in which the coach approach might not work. If there's only one way of doing things, like it's a compliance thing, and there's only one way of doing it to stay out of jail. It's a legal thing. So if it's safety compliance or some type of organizational compliance or a legal thing, that could be telling. For every other conversation, the coach approach gets better results. Let's look at the bigger picture here. When leaders or whole organizations shift to the coach approach, it means that something deeper happens than just getting the report on time, just getting this on time, just getting that. But you're moving from managing the status quo to generating human growth. And when your people grow, the organization grows. when you're generating human growth, the leader themselves will start growing as well. Growing organizations improve productivity, the bottom line. They improve their market reach. They improve everything. You can't do it without growth. Growing people and growing capacity is the true and honorable work of leadership. Leadership is not just about hitting KPIs. It's about leaving the person that you're working with better than what you found them. And in one-on-ones gives you that opportunity so often, because we have one-on-ones regularly. We have one-on-ones weekly, bi-weekly. If every time you have a one-on-one, your person leaves that meeting feeling improved, feeling engaged, feeling motivated, and feeling like they have grown, that is high value.